Cryptography fundamentals, cumulative encryption. What's at the core of cryptography? Well, the simple EXOR operation holds a special place, as we do not lose any information when we apply it. For a bitwise operation, a 0 XOR 0 gives us 0, 0 XOR 1 gives us 1, 1 XOR 0 gives us 1, and 1 XOR 1 gives us 0. This is equivalent to a bitwise adder circuit. And so cryptographers dream of the perfect cipher, and that cipher is a one-time pad. Basically, we generate a one-time use key for our plaintext and then XOR them together, and then just XOR again with the same key, and we will get our plaintext back again. Unfortunately, we can only use this key once and need to generate another one for the next time we want to cipher. So let's see if we can generate something similar, but just where we use simple XOR operations for our encryption and decryption. In the Tor, the onion router network, data is encrypted with a key from each of the routing nodes on the Tor network. Thus, if we have 3 routing nodes of A, B, and C, and with A as the entry node and C as the exit node, we can then get the user to generate a separate key for each node to use. Initially, we can take the data and then encrypt the data with the key of A. Then we encrypt with the key of B and then encrypt with the key of C. The encrypted data is then passed to node A, and which will decrypt the data with its own key, and then pass this encrypted data on to B, who will then encrypt with its key. Finally, the data will be passed to C, who will decrypt with their key, and the data will now be decrypted. This protects the data as it is routed. But we have to remove the keys in the reverse order that they were applied. One way to overcome this is to use commutative encryption using a hasp. When I worked as an electrical engineer, we had a hasp to isolate the electrical power on a device that we were working on. This hasp locks the power off and has places to place the padlocks. The padlocks can be applied in any order and can be taken off in any order. But only when all of the padlocks are taken off is it possible to open up the hasp and put the power back on. So can we do this with data? Let's say that Bob, Alice and Carol want to apply their own data hasp so that the data cannot be revealed until they have taken off all their padlocks. Well, with symmetric key block ciphers such as AES, we cannot do this, as we must decrypt in the reverse order of the keys that are applied. So if we went Bob, Alice, Carol, then to decrypt Carol, Alice, Bob. There are ways to do this with public key encryption, such as with RSA, using the SRA method, but these methods significantly reduce the security of the process. The solution is to use a stream cipher, and where we basically just XOR the data when we are crypting and then XOR again with the same key when we are decrypting. We can then apply multiple keys and in any order, and it will always decrypt properly once we have applied all the keys. What we need with the commutative encryption is that we have an encryption string which will have the same length as the data string. To create the encryption string, we can use an XOF or an extendable output function, and where we create a hash value of a given length. For this, rather than using the fixed hashes of SHA-3, we can use the shake method, or with Blake 2b, we have the XOF of Blake 2xb for Blake 2s, and we have the XOF of Blake to XS. We can then basically have a secret passphrase in which generates an output which matches the length of the plaintext. Another method we can use is to generate a pseudo-infinitely long encryption key which is the same length as the plaintext and works in the same way as our stream cipher texts work. A simple example: booking a ticket. With the ever-increasing number of breaches, we are moving to a world where companies should not hold any personally sensitive information as it can become too risky. So how can we create a trustworthy system where someone can show up with a ticket and we would trust it without actually revealing any personal information about the seat that the person has booked? So how can we generate a receipt of the booking but not give away their identity or the details of the booking? Let's have a look at an example of booking a seat system in a theatre and how we can respect privacy, but where the theatre can still trust the ticket. Let's say there are 100 seats in the theatre and I want to book one of them, but I don't want the theatre company to know which seat I've booked or my identity. I also want a receipt of purchase that they can verify my booking. One way would be to get a trusted agent to look after my bookings, but I don't trust them either. So how can we do it? Well, we can do it with commutative encryption. The steps would be: initially the theatre company creates 100 receipts for each of the seats it has and then encrypts them with its public key. Next, when I want to book a seat, they send me the encrypted receipts that they have left and I select one at random and then encrypt it with my public key. I send them all back, including the one I've encrypted. The theatre checks to see which one has changed and then decrypts it with its private key and sends it back to me. I decrypt with my private key and I can now view the receipt for my booking, and the theatre company cannot determine which seat I have, but I will have a receipt for the booking. This method uses a public key encryption method where we can apply the keys in any order that we want. Commutative encryption using ChaCha20, a stream cipher. ChaCha20 is a stream cipher and where we create a pseudo-infinitely long encryption key and then just XOR it with the plain text. With commutative encryption, we can decrypt with the keys in any order. Normally, we would encrypt with Bob's key and then encrypt with Alice's key, and then we would decrypt with Alice's key and then Bob's. In commutative encryption, we can decrypt in any order. With a stream cipher, we can automatically apply commutative encryption as we basically XOR with the key stream. I've given an example using Golang code and where Bob encrypts, Alice encrypts, then Bob decrypts, and then Alice decrypts. We can easily extend this method to Carol, Trent, and so on. In the simple case, we've used the same nonce value for Bob and Alice, but in real life, they would use different values, and these would be random for every transaction. Commutative encryption using SHAKE128. NIST chose CAPTCHA as a standard method for SHA-3, but it's all a bit confusing as there are two main versions of this, CAPTCHA and SHA-3. Many systems, such as Ethereum, have adopted CAPTCHA, while others have went for SHA-3. The only real difference between them is the difference between the padding of data. In an extendable output function, or XOF, we produce a bit string that can be of any length. In fact, we can create an infinitely long bit string if required. The main methods that we can use are shake128, shake256, blake2xb, and blake_xs. With the SHA-3 hashing method, we can have 4 different hashing methods of SHA-3224, SHA-3256, SHA-3384, and SHA-3512, and 2 XOF functions of SHA-128 and shake128 and shake256. With commutative encryption, we decrypt with the keys in any order. Normally, we would encrypt with Bob's key and then encrypt with Alice's, and decrypt with Alice's key next and then with Bob's. In commutative encryption, we can decrypt in any order. In the example I've given, we will use shake128 and shake256 to be able to implement commutative encryption. Commutative encryption using public key with SRA. With maths, operations such as multiplication are commutative, such as 3 times 5 times 4 is equal to 4 times 5 times 3. In encryption, most operations are non-commutative, so we need to modify the methods. One way is to use RSA, but generate 2 keys which have shared P, Q, and N values. So we generate Bob and Alice's keys using the same prime numbers P and Q, and then so that they can share the same N value or modulus. So let's start with Bob. Let's select P equals 7, Q equals 13. The calculation of the modulus N will be N is equal to 7 times 13, which is 91. And then we compute phi, which is P minus 1 times Q minus 1, which gives us 72. We need to make sure that our encryption key does not share any factors with phi. That's the GCD of phi, and E is 1. So we could select E equal to 5. We can now compute the value of D from D times 5 mod 72 equals 1, or D is equal to the inverse of E mod phi, and we get the answer of 29. So our encryption key becomes 91.5 and our decryption key becomes 91.29. For Alice, Alice can then take N as the same value, 91. She'll get the phi of 72, and now selects a different value of E, which does not share a factor with phi. In this case, she might select E equals 7. And then we can solve that D is equal to the inverse of E mod phi and get the value of 31. Alice's keys are now 91.7 for encryption and 91.31 for decryption. In the related blog page, I've got an example of using this method to be able to implement commutative encryption. The major problem here is that both Bob and Alice will share the same values of P and Q. Commutative encryption using Massey Omura. As we have seen, commutative encryption allows us to decrypt in any order. For this, we can use the Massey Omura crypto system and generate encryption keys which share a prime number. One classic patent for this type of encryption was created by James Massey and Jim K. Omura, who created the Massey Omura crypto system in 1982. It took over 3 years to be assigned and was assigned eventually to the Omnet Associates as patent number 4567600 and awarded in 1986. It uses an explanation of a Galois field G to the GF 2 to the power of n for both the encryption and decryption functions. In this, if we have a message M, the encryption is that E of em is equal to m to the power of e, and d of m is equal to d to the power of m to the power of d. I've shown the method in the related blog post, and where we can encrypt a message with any of the keys in any sequence. One of the advantages of this type of crypto system is that we can have commutative encryption. In this way, Bob may have keys of EBDB and Alice may have keys of EADA. We can then apply the keys in any order, such as encrypting with EA and decrypting with EB, and where we can then encrypt them with EB, and where we can then decrypt with DA and then decrypt with DB, or decrypt with DB first and then decrypt with DA, as we normally do. Conclusions. Commutative encryption is a great way of applying multiple keys to encryption and then to be removed in any order that is required. It is a little like taking the data encrypted in the Tor network, but the Tor network requires the keys to be removed in reverse order as they are applied. In a future podcast, I will explain more about how Tor networks actually work. Thank you.